They say the devil wears Armani. I can confirm that's true, because I'm staring at him right now, and he's wearing a three-piece suit that probably costs more than my car. Dante Salvatore. Billionaire. CEO. And the man who just told me I belong to him now. My father's debts. My father's sins. Somehow, they've all become mine. And the most dangerous man in New York just smiled at me like a predator who's finally cornered his prey. What he doesn't know. I don't break easily. And this game he's playing? I'm about to change all the rules. But first, let me tell you how I ended up in the penthouse office of a mafia king with blood on his hands and vengeance in his heart. The rain hammered against the windows of my small Brooklyn apartment like bullets, each drop a warning I should have heeded. It was past midnight when they came for me. I was curled up on my second-hand couch, grading papers from my art history class at NYU, when the door burst open. Not with a knock. Not with a polite request for entry. The heavy wood simply splintered inward, the lock no match for whatever force was applied to it. 3 men entered my sanctuary like shadows given form, all dark suits, dead eyes, and lethal intent. I screamed, but the sound died in my throat when I saw the gun in the first man's hand. Elena Romano? The tallest one spoke with a thick Italian accent that would have been beautiful under different circumstances. My heart hammered against my ribs. Who's asking? Someone who doesn't repeat himself. You're coming with us. I'm not going anywhere until you tell me. The gun rose, not pointed at me, but at the framed photograph on my bookshelf. My mother. The only picture I had left of her before cancer took her 3 years ago. Please, I whispered, hating the weakness in my voice. Please don't. Then move. Now. I moved. They wrapped a blindfold around my eyes before we left the building, guiding me into what felt like a luxury vehicle, leather seats, the scent of expensive cologne, and something else. Something dangerous. The drive lasted 40 minutes. I counted every second, trying to memorize turns, but fear made my mental map useless. When we finally stopped and they removed the blindfold, I found myself standing in front of a glass and steel tower in Midtown Manhattan. The kind of building that housed billion-dollar companies and the men who owned them. Salvatore Tower. The name gleamed in chrome letters 50 feet high, visible even in the rain. I'd seen this building 1,000 times, passed it on my way to the museum, never knowing it belonged to them. To him. They escorted me through a private entrance, bypassing security with the ease of people who owned the place. The elevator was all mirrors and marble, ascending so fast my ears popped. The numbers climbed 40 floors, 50, 60. We didn't stop until we reached the penthouse. The doors opened onto a space that defied imagination. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed Manhattan spread out like a kingdom of lights. The office was decorated in shades of black and deep burgundy, every piece of furniture a work of art, every surface gleaming. Abstract paintings worth millions hung on the walls. I recognized a Rothko, a Pollock, pieces that belonged in museums. But it was the man behind the massive desk who stole every particle of my attention. Now, I need you to understand something about Dante Salvatore. You've seen powerful men before, maybe in movies, maybe in real life. But Dante? He was different. He didn't just occupy space, he owned it. Every breath in that room belonged to him. And when he looked at me with those coal black eyes, I felt something I'd never felt before. Not just fear. Not just attraction. But the terrible certainty that my life had just been divided into 2 parts, before Dante and after. What I didn't know was that he was about to offer me a choice that wasn't really a choice at all. And the secret he was hiding? It would shatter everything I thought I knew about my family. Dante Salvatore rose from his chair with the fluid grace of a panther. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with a kind of build that spoke of discipline and power. His black hair was perfectly styled, his jaw sharp enough to cut glass, and his suit fit him like a second skin. Italian, obviously. Probably custom-made on Savile Row. But it was his eyes that held me captive. Dark, intense, and absolutely merciless. Miss Romano. His voice was deep, cultured, with just a hint of an Italian accent that made my name sound like a prayer. Or a curse. Thank you for joining us. I didn't exactly have a choice, I shot back, finding my courage in anger. One corner of his mouth lifted, not quite a smile, more like the expression a cat makes before toying with a mouse. No, you didn't. He gestured to one of his men, who pulled out a chair. The message was clear. Sit. I remained standing. What do you want from me? Direct. I like that. Dante circled his desk, moving closer. Each step was calculated, predatory. Your father owes me something, Elena. May I call you Elena? You can call me Miss Romano, since we're not friends. That almost smile again. Fair enough. Miss Romano, your father, Vincent Romano, made certain promises to my family. Promises involving a rather substantial sum of money and a business arrangement that would have been mutually beneficial. My stomach dropped. My father. I should have known. Vincent Romano was many things: a gambler, a dreamer, a man who always had one more scheme that would make us rich. After my mother died, he'd spiraled, desperate to recapture something he'd lost. I distanced myself, moved out, tried to build a life separate from his chaos. Apparently, I hadn't moved far enough. I don't have anything to do with my father's business, I said firmly. I know. Dante stopped a few feet away, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive, with notes of bergamot and leather. You're a graduate student at NYU. Art history. You work part-time at the Metropolitan Museum. You live in a modest apartment in Brooklyn, drive a 15-year-old Honda, and you haven't spoken to your father in 6 months. The blood drained from my face. You've been watching me. I've been watching everyone connected to Vincent Romano. And now, I'm collecting on his debts. I told you I don't have $3 million, Dante interrupted smoothly. That's what your father owes my family. $3 million that he borrowed to finance a shipment of pharmaceuticals from overseas. Except the shipment never arrived, and the money disappeared. $3 million. The number hit me like a physical blow. He stole from you, I whispered. He stole from me, Dante confirmed. And in my world, Miss Romano, debts are always paid. One way or another. I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to ward off the chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. I don't have $3 million. I can barely make rent. I know. Which is why I'm offering you an alternative arrangement. Here it comes, I thought. The proposition. The dirty deal. I'd heard stories about men like Dante Salvatore, mob bosses who wrapped themselves in legitimacy, running corporations by day and criminal empires by night. I knew what men like that wanted from women like me. I'm not sleeping with you for my father's debts, I said flatly. To my surprise, Dante laughed. Actually laughed, a rich, genuine sound that transformed his face for just a moment. As tempting as that offer might be under different circumstances, that's not what I'm proposing. Then what? He returned to his desk, picking up a folder I hadn't noticed before. Your father has disappeared. My people have been searching for him for 3 weeks. He's gone to ground somewhere, and I suspect he won't surface until he believes the danger has passed. Months. Maybe years. So you're going to help me draw him out. My hands clenched into fists. You want me to betray my father. I want you to be visible. Present. A reminder of what he's abandoned in his cowardice. Dante's expression hardened. You'll stay here, in this building, under my protection. You'll continue your life as normally as possible: classes, work, your routines. But you'll also attend certain events with me. Be seen at my side. Sooner or later, your father will hear about it. And when his precious daughter is consorting with the man he betrayed, he'll surface. And then you'll kill him. Then I'll have a conversation with him about repayment. It was a pretty way of saying the same thing. I shook my head. No, I won't do it. Dante opened the folder, sliding a photograph across the desk. I didn't want to look. Every instinct screamed at me to turn away. But my eyes betrayed me. The photograph showed my father, clearly taken from a distance. He was entering some kind of warehouse, and he wasn't alone. The men with him were armed, dangerous looking. And in the corner of the frame, barely visible, were crates marked with pharmaceutical company logos. Your father didn't just steal money, Elena. Dante's voice had gone cold again. He stole product. Medications that were meant for children's hospitals, cancer treatment centers, clinics that serve the poor. He's going to sell them on the black market for triple what they're worth, and people will die because they can't afford the medicine they need. The room spun. No. My father was selfish, reckless, but he wasn't. He wouldn't. You're lying. I wish I were. Dante pulled out more photographs. Shipping manifests. Bank statements with my father's name. I'm many things, Miss Romano, but I don't lie about business. Your father crossed a line. And now you're going to help me make this right. I want you to pause here and imagine what you'd do in Elena's position. Your father, the man who raised you, who read you bedtime stories, who taught you to ride a bike, is now a thief who's going to let children die for profit. And the monster offering to stop him? He's standing in front of you, beautiful and terrible, offering you a devil's bargain. Do you take it? Do you trust him? Or do you run? Elena's about to make her choice. And what happens next? It's going to change everything. I stared at the photographs until they blurred. This couldn't be real. My father had his faults, but this was evil. This was unforgivable. If I agree, I said slowly, what exactly would this arrangement entail? Dante's expression shifted, something like approval flickering in his dark eyes. You'll move into the penthouse apartment on the 72nd floor. It's secure, comfortable, and you'll have everything you need. You'll continue your classes and work, but you'll be accompanied by security at all times. You mean guards? I mean protection. There are people who would use you against me, Elena. If you're going to be associated with me publicly, you need to be safe. How thoughtful, I said dryly. What else? Twice a week, you'll accompany me to social functions. Galas, charity events, business dinners. You'll smile, make conversation, and let people believe we're involved. So I'm supposed to pretend to be your girlfriend. My companion. I don't do girlfriends. He said it like it was a fact, immutable as gravity. How long? Until your father surfaces. Could be weeks. Could be months. I laughed bitterly. And I'm supposed to just agree to this? Put my life on hold, lie to everyone I know, play dress up for a mobster. Businessman, Dante corrected smoothly. Businessman who probably has bodies buried in the foundation of this very building? His silence was answer enough. I turned away, walking to the windows. Manhattan glittered below, millions of lights representing millions of lives, all of them going on as normal while mine shattered into pieces. I could say no. I could walk out of here, go to the police, tell them everything. Except the police wouldn't help. Men like Dante owned the police. And my father would keep running, keep selling those medications, and children would suffer. God help me, but I knew what I had to do. I have conditions, I said, not turning around. I'm listening. I finish my degree. No matter what. If I have exams, papers, research, that comes first. Agreed. I want to keep working at the museum. It's important to me. Agreed, with security. And when my father surfaces, you don't kill him. Whatever he's done, whatever he owes you, you find another way. The silence stretched so long I finally turned around. Dante was watching me with an expression I couldn't read. That's not a condition I can agree to, he said finally. But I can promise you this. I'll give him a chance to make things right. What he does with that chance is up to him. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was all I was going to get. One more thing, I added, lifting my chin. You don't touch me. This is business, not anything else. Something flashed in Dante's eyes, amusement, maybe, or challenge. I never take what isn't freely given, Elena. You have my word. The word of a criminal. The word of a man who keeps his promises. He extended his hand. Do we have a deal? I stared at his hand like it was a snake. Taking it meant stepping into his world, a world of danger and darkness and moral compromises I'd never imagined making. But leaving it meant abandoning my father to his fate and letting innocent people suffer. There was no good choice. There was only the choice I could live with. I took his hand. His grip was firm, warm, and sent an unexpected jolt through me. For just a moment, our eyes met, and I saw something in his gaze that made my breath catch. Hunger. Interest. Something that had nothing to do with business and everything to do with the fact that I was a woman, and he was very much a man. Then he released me, the moment broken. Good, he said briskly. Marco will show you to your apartment. Your belongings will be collected from Brooklyn tomorrow. If there's anything you need immediately, just ask. That's it? I just move in. Did you have other plans for tonight? Fair point. It was nearly 2 a.m. I was exhausted, terrified, and had just agreed to become the kept woman of a mafia don. What else was there to say? Marco, the tall man who'd broken into my apartment, appeared at my elbow. This way, Miss Romano. I followed him out of Dante's office, feeling the weight of those dark eyes on my back with every step. The elevator took us up 2 more floors to a private entrance. Marco used a key card to unlock the door, then handed it to me. Your card. Don't lose it. Alarm code is 7294. Change it if you want, but tell Mr. Salvatore. Why would he need my alarm code? Marco's expression didn't change. He owns the building, Miss Romano. He has every code. This is just a courtesy. Right. Privacy was apparently another thing I'd just signed away. The apartment beyond the door made my breath catch for an entirely different reason than Dante Salvatore had. It was stunning. Easily 3,000 square feet of open-concept luxury, with those same floor-to-ceiling windows offering views of the city that probably cost more than most people's houses. The furniture was modern and expensive, all clean lines and rich fabrics. The kitchen gleamed with top-of-the-line appliances I wouldn't know how to use. There was art on the walls, real art, not prints, and fresh flowers on every surface. Guest bedroom is through there, Marco indicated. Master suite is there. Bathrooms are stocked. Kitchen is full. Mr. Salvatore will expect you for breakfast at 8. In the morning? It was already past 2. Yes, that's in 6 hours. Then I suggest you sleep, Miss Romano. Marco turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. Don't try to leave the building without security. And don't try to contact your father. We're monitoring all your communications now. If you tip him off, the deal is void. Of course you are, I muttered. When he left, I was alone in my gilded cage. I explored the apartment in a daze, opening closets to find them already full of clothes in my size, designer labels I recognized from magazine spreads, shoes that probably cost more than my monthly rent, lingerie that made me blush. Someone had done their homework. The master bedroom was dominated by a king-size bed with silk sheets and enough pillows for a hotel. The bathroom was marble and gold, with a tub big enough for 3 people and a shower that had more jets than my car had features. I should have felt grateful. Odd, even. Instead, I felt trapped. I barely slept, tossing and turning between those silk sheets, my mind racing. What had I done? What was I going to tell my friends, my professors, my colleagues at the museum? How long could I maintain this lie before it consumed me? And underneath all of that, one question kept surfacing, unwelcome and undeniable. Why did Dante Salvatore's touch still burn on my skin? At exactly 8 o'clock, there was a knock on my door. I'd been awake for hours, having given up on sleep around 5. I'd showered, dressed in my own clothes, jeans and a sweater, refusing to wear the designer wardrobe that had appeared in my closets, and tried to prepare myself for whatever came next. A young woman stood in the hallway, professionally dressed, with a warm smile. Miss Romano? I'm Sophia, Mr. Salvatore's personal assistant. He's ready for breakfast. I followed her to the elevator, which took us back down to the penthouse office level. But instead of entering the office, Sophia led me through a side door into what appeared to be a private residence. The space was similar to my apartment, but more lived in, more personal. Dark leather furniture, bookshelves full of actual books, photographs in silver frames. Through another doorway, I could see a dining room where Dante sat at the head of a table laden with breakfast foods. He ditched the suit jacket and tie, dressed now in just black slacks and a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up to reveal surprisingly muscular forearms. He looked up from his newspaper as I entered. Elena. Good morning. I hope you slept well. Like a baby, I lied. If that baby was being held hostage by the mob. His lips twitched. Sit. Eat. You look exhausted. I wanted to refuse, but the spread of food was impossible to resist: fresh fruit, pastries, eggs, bacon, and coffee that smelled like heaven. I'd barely eaten yesterday, and my stomach betrayed me with a loud growl. Dante gestured to the chair beside him. I don't bite, Elena. At least not at breakfast. I sat, maintaining as much distance as the chair allowed. What happens now? Now we establish your new routine. He poured coffee for both of us, handling the delicate china with surprising grace for such large hands. You'll continue your classes as scheduled. Marco and 2 others will accompany you, but they'll be discreet. Your friends and professors don't need to know they're there. And if someone asks where I'm living now, tell them you house-sitting for a family friend. It's close to the truth. I took a long sip of coffee, needing the caffeine. When's the first public appearance? Saturday night. Charity gala at the plaza. Black tie. Cancer research fundraiser. Of course it was cancer research. The universe had a sick sense of humor. I don't have anything appropriate to wear, I said, knowing it was futile. Yes, you do. The closet in your apartment has several options. There's also a stylist coming at noon to help you choose. You've thought of everything. I always do. Now, here's where things get interesting. Because over the next few days, Elena and Dante are going to start a dance, a dangerous, intoxicating push and pull that neither of them expected. She thinks she knows what kind of man he is. He thinks he knows what kind of woman she is. They're both wrong. And when Elena discovers the real reason Dante hates her father, when she learns the secret that's been driving his vengeance, everything she believes about good and evil, about right and wrong, is going to shatter. But first, she has to survive her first public appearance as Dante Salvatore's woman. And in his world, appearances can kill. The next few days passed in a surreal blur. I went in my classes, surrounded by guards I tried to pretend weren't there. My friends noticed something was different. I was distracted, stressed, jumping at shadows, but I blamed it on work and school pressure. The lies came easier than I expected. Easier than they should have. The museum was harder. I loved my work there, cataloging new acquisitions, researching provenance, losing myself in the stories of art and artists. But now, even that sanctuary felt tainted. I couldn't look at a painting without wondering if Dante owned one like it. Couldn't focus on my research without thinking about him. Saturday arrived too quickly. The stylist, a tiny woman named Gabriella with impeccable taste and no patience for my protests, descended on my apartment with an army of assistants. They did my hair, my makeup, my nails, transforming me into someone I barely recognized. The dress they chose was a deep emerald green, floor-length, with a neckline that plunged just enough to be daring without being scandalous. It hugged every curve I had and suggested a few I didn't know existed. The shoes were silver Louboutins with heels so high I needed practice walking in them. When I finally looked in the mirror, a stranger stared back. Elegant. Sophisticated. Dangerous. Perfect camouflage for Dante Salvatore's world. He came to collect me himself at 7. One moment I was alone, the next he was standing in my living room like he'd materialized from shadow. He wore a tuxedo that had definitely been custom-made, fitted so perfectly it should have been illegal. But it was the way he looked at me that stole my breath. His dark eyes traveled from my styled hair down to my Louboutin heels and back up again, slowly, thoroughly, missing nothing. When his gaze finally met mine, the heat in it could have melted steel. You look. He paused, seeming to search for the right word. Devastating. Is that a compliment in your world? The highest I can give. He extended his arm. Shall we? The plaza was lit up like a palace, red carpet rolled out, photographers everywhere. Dante's hand settled on the small of my back as we emerged from the car, and flashbulbs exploded like stars going supernova. Smile, he murmured against my ear, his breath warm on my skin. You're madly in love with me, remember? I'm considering murder, actually. His laugh was low and genuine. Even better. Passion reads well in photographs. We moved through the gauntlet of photographers, Dante fielding questions with practiced ease. Who was I? A friend. Where had we met? Through mutual acquaintances. How long had we been seeing each other? That's private. Each answer revealed nothing while suggesting everything. Inside, the ballroom was a showcase of wealth and power. Crystal chandeliers, champagne flowing like water, women dripping with diamonds and men radiating influence. I recognized faces from newspapers, magazines, television, politicians, CEOs, celebrities who normally existed only on screens. And they all seemed to know Dante. We moved through the crowd like sharks through water, Dante making introductions, shaking hands, exchanging pleasantries that carried undercurrents I couldn't quite follow. Every man wanted his attention. Every woman wanted more than that. And I was the one on his arm. You're doing very well, Dante said during a quiet moment, handing me a glass of champagne. Natural actress. I'm not acting. I genuinely want to strangle you. I know. It's quite charming. He lifted his glass in a mock toast. To new partnerships. I was about to reply when I noticed a man watching us from across the room. Older, distinguished, with silver hair and cold blue eyes. He was staring at me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. Dante followed my gaze and his entire body went rigid. Who is that? I whispered. Alessandro Vitelli. The name came out like a curse. He's the reason you're here. Before I could ask what he meant, Vitelli was moving toward us, cutting through the crowd with purpose. Dante's hand tightened on my waist, pulling me closer. Salvatore, Vitelli said, his accent thick and European. I heard rumors you'd found yourself a companion. I had to see for myself. Alessandro. Surprising to see you at a charity event. I didn't think you had a heart. Vitelli's smile was reptilian. I'm full of surprises. His eyes raked over me, making me feel exposed despite my dress. And who is this beautiful creature? Someone above your pay grade, Dante said coldly. Spirited. I like that. Vitelli leaned closer, his voice dropping. Does she know what you really are, Salvatore? What you've done? The blood on your hands. I felt Dante's muscles coil like a spring about to snap. But his voice remained perfectly controlled. Does your wife know where you really were last Tuesday? I have photographs if you'd like to refresh your memory. Vitelli's face darkened. You're playing a dangerous game. I always win dangerous games. You should remember that. The tension was thick enough to cut. Other guests were starting to notice, conversations dying around us. Then Vitelli smiled again, stepping back. Enjoy the evening, miss. Romano, I said before I could stop myself. The change in Vitelli's expression was instantaneous. Shock. Recognition. Something almost like glee. Romano? As in Vincent Romano. Dante's hand became iron on my waist. That's quite the association, Salvatore, Vitelli continued, his smile widening. Vincent's daughter. How poetic. Walk away, Alessandro, Dante said quietly. While you still can. Vitelli laughed, but he retreated, melting back into the crowd. But the damage was done. I could see people whispering, phone cameras pointed our way, the gossip already spreading like wildfire. We're leaving, Dante said, already guiding me toward the exit. What just happened? Later. Car. Now. We made it to the street before the questions really started flying from the reporters. Dante shielded me with his body, getting me into the back of the waiting car. The moment the door closed, we were moving, leaving the chaos behind. I turned on him. What the hell was that? Who is that man? And why did my name matter so much to him? Dante loosened his bow tie, his jaw tight. Alessandro Vitelli is one of the most dangerous men in New York. He's also one of my oldest enemies. That doesn't answer my question. Your father didn't just steal from me, Elena. Dante's eyes met mine in the dim light of the car, and I saw something in them I hadn't seen before. Grief. He stole from a shipment that was supposed to go to St. Vincent's Children's Hospital. Chemotherapy drugs for pediatric cancer patients. My blood ran cold. You said that before. The medications. My sister was being treated there. His voice was flat, emotionless in the way of someone barely holding themselves together. She was 8 years old. She'd been fighting leukemia for 2 years. The new treatment protocol was working. She was getting better. Oh God. No. When the shipment didn't arrive, they had to delay her treatment. They tried substitutes, older medications, but her cancer was aggressive. By the time they got the drug she needed. He looked away, his throat working. She died 3 months ago. The same week your father disappeared with my money. Stop. Just stop and let that sink in. Elena's father didn't just steal money. He didn't just steal medicine. He killed a little girl. Dante's baby sister. And Elena is sitting in a car with a man whose entire world shattered because of her family. A man who's been holding himself together with vengeance and rage. A man who's supposed to hate her. But here's the thing about hate, sometimes it looks a lot like something else. And what's about to happen between them? It's going to blur every line that exists between right and wrong, love and hate, revenge and redemption. Because Elena is about to do something that changes everything. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. The world had narrowed to Dante's profile in the darkness, to the truth of what my father had done. A little girl. 8 years old. Dead because of greed. I'm so sorry, I whispered, knowing it was inadequate. Knowing no words could ever be adequate. I'm so sorry. Why? Dante's voice was harsh. You didn't do it. She was my father's sin, but my voice broke. I'm Romano too. He turned to look at me then, and the raw pain in his eyes nearly destroyed me. You didn't know. That doesn't matter. It doesn't change what he did. Doesn't change that your sister, I couldn't say it. Couldn't say the word died when it was so much more than that. Murdered. Killed by neglect and greed and my father's recklessness. Tears streamed down my face, ruining the careful makeup, but I didn't care. I'd been so focused on protecting my father, on believing he couldn't be that bad, that I'd ignored all the evidence. All the signs. Her name was Juliana, Dante said softly. We called her Gia. She loved to paint. Wanted to be an artist when she grew up. Something inside me shattered. An artist. Like me. Tell me about her, I said. Please. We were pulling up to Salvatore Tower, but Dante didn't move to get out. Instead, he did something I never expected. He pulled out his phone and showed me a photograph. A little girl with dark hair and Dante's eyes, laughing at the camera, paint smudged on her nose. She was holding up a canvas covered in bright colors, abstract, joyful, full of life. She painted that the week before she got sick, Dante continued, his voice rough with emotion. She said it was called Happy Chaos. That's what she thought the world was, beautiful chaos that made sense if you looked at it the right way. I stared at the photograph, at this child who would never grow up, never hold a paintbrush again, never see her work in a gallery. Because of my father. I want to help, I said suddenly. However I can. Whatever you need. If there are other patients who need medications, if there are families struggling with bills, I don't have much money, but I can fundraise, I can work, I can. Elena. Dante's hand covered mine, stopping my frantic words. You don't have to. Yes, I do. I can't bring her back. I can't undo what my father did. But I can't just stand by and do nothing. I met his eyes, seeing him clearly for the first time. Not a monster. Not a villain. Just a man drowning in grief who'd channeled it into rage because he didn't know what else to do with it. Something shifted between us in that moment. The car felt smaller, the air thicker. Dante's hand was still on mine, warm and solid, and I became acutely aware of how close we were sitting. You're not what I expected, he said quietly. Neither are you. His eyes dropped to my lips and my breath caught. The tension that had been building between us since that first handshake crystallized into something undeniable. Dangerous. Real. This is a mistake, Dante murmured, but he was leaning closer. Probably, I agreed, but I wasn't pulling away. When his lips met mine, it felt like the world tilted on its axis. The kiss was gentle at first, questioning, giving me every chance to retreat. But I didn't want to retreat. I wanted to fall into this feeling, this moment where nothing existed except the two of us and the electricity crackling between us. Then the kiss deepened, and gentle became consuming. Dante's hand slid into my hair, angling my head to take the kiss deeper. I gripped his lapels, pulling him closer, desperate for more. The kiss tasted like champagne and danger, and something sweeter than either possibility. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante rested his forehead against mine. We can't do this, he said, but his hands were still in my hair. I know. You're here because of your father. Because of business. This was never supposed to. I know, I repeated. But we both knew it was a lie. This had been building since the moment we met. Since that first look in his office when he'd seen me as more than just a pawn in his game of revenge. One more, Dante said, and kissed me again. This time, there was nothing gentle about it. It was fire and fury and need all tangled together. His hands roamed over the silk of my dress, burning through the fabric. My fingers found the buttons of his shirt, desperate to feel skin. The driver cleared his throat. Loudly. We broke apart, both of us flushed and breathing hard. Dante ran a hand through his hair, making it stand up in a way that was unfairly attractive. We should go inside, he said. Probably. But neither of us moved. Finally, Dante opened the car door, offering me his hand. I took it, letting him help me out, hyper-aware of every point where our bodies touched. The elevator ride to my floor was silent and charged, the air between us crackling with unfinished business. At my door, he stopped. Elena. Don't, I interrupted. Don't apologize. Don't tell me it was a mistake. Just, don't. A smile tugged at his lips. I was going to say goodnight. Oh. I felt my cheeks heat. Then, good night. But he didn't leave. His hand came up to cut my face, thumb brushing over my cheekbone. You're making this very complicated. Good. You made my life complicated first. He laughed, and the sound transformed him. For a moment, he wasn't Dante Salvatore, feared mafia don and billionaire CEO. He was just a man who'd forgotten how to be happy and was remembering. Good night, Elena, he said finally, and walked away. I let myself into the apartment and leaned against the door, my heart still racing. What had I just done? I'd kissed the man holding me captive. The man who was using me to trap my father. The man whose sister my father had killed. This was insane. Impossible. Wrong. So why did it feel so right? The next morning, I woke to find a note slipped under my door. The paintings in your apartment are on loan from my private collection. If you'd like to see more, I have a gallery on the 69th floor. The code is 0328. Gia's birthday. D. I stood in my kitchen, staring at the note, something warm unfurling in my chest. He was sharing his sister with me, letting me into the most painful part of his life. I should have been planning my escape. Should have been figuring out how to contact my father, warn him, something. Instead, I was getting dressed and heading down to the 69th floor, punching in Gia's birthday like I had every right to be there. The gallery took my breath away. It was a private space, climate-controlled and perfectly lit, filled with art that belonged in museums. Monets, Rembrandts, Caravaggios. Pieces worth millions, maybe tens of millions, displayed with reverence and care. But it was the wall at the far end that made my throat tight. Gia's paintings. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, each one carefully framed and hung. Her progression from simple crayon drawings to more complex watercolors to the vibrant abstracts she'd been creating before she got sick. A whole life captured in color and canvas. I stood in front of them, tears streaming down my face, and understood. This was Dante's shrine. His way of keeping his sister alive. Every stroke of her brush was a memory he couldn't let go. She would have been a great artist. Dante's voice came from behind me. I didn't turn, didn't wipe away my tears. She already was. He moved to stand beside me, his shoulder brushing mine. We stood in silence for a long moment, looking at a little girl's dreams made manifest. I come here every morning, Dante admitted. Talk to her. Tell her about my day. Sometimes I ask her advice. What does she say? A ghost of a smile. Usually that I'm being an idiot and I should stop being so serious. She was right, of course. She usually was. I looked up at him. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why are you really doing this? Using me to get to my father. You could have just taken him, killed him. Why the elaborate game? Dante's joy tightened. Because I wanted him to suffer first. Wanted him to know what it feels like to lose something precious. To be helpless while it happens. And now? Now. He looked at me, and I saw the conflict in his eyes. Now it's more complicated. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He pulled it out, his expression darkening as he read the message. What is it? Your father. We have a lead. One of my people spotted him in Atlantic City, meeting with Alessandro Vitelli. My blood went cold. Vitelli? The man from last night. The same. Which means your father isn't just running from me, he's working with my enemies. Dante's voice was ice. He's planning something. And whatever it is, it's going to be bad. Here's where everything gets dangerous. Because Elena's father isn't just hiding, he's partnering with the most ruthless man in the criminal underworld. And their target? It's not just Dante's money or his empire. It's Dante himself. A war is coming. One that will force Elena to choose between blood and love, between loyalty and justice. And the choice she makes? It's going to cost her everything. But before we get to that, you need to understand what happened next. Because in the days that followed, Elena and Dante crossed a line they could never uncross. And when the truth finally came out, when she discovered the one secret Dante had been keeping from her, it would destroy them both. The week that followed was a study in contrasts. By day, I went to classes, worked at the museum, maintained the illusion of normalcy. By night, I existed in Dante's world, attending dinners with dangerous men, charity galas with the city's elite, always playing the role of his devoted companion. But the line between pretense and reality was blurring. We'd kiss for the cameras, and it would linger too long after the flashes stopped. He'd touch my waist to guide me through a crowd, and his hand would stay there, burning through fabric. Late at night, I'd find him in Gia's gallery, and I'd sit with him in comfortable silence, sharing the weight of grief. We were falling. Both of us. And neither of us knew how to stop. Thursday night, after a particularly grueling business dinner, Dante suggested we walk back to the tower instead of taking the car. It was a beautiful May evening, the city alive with energy and possibility. Tell me something about yourself, Dante said as we walked. Something real. Like what? Anything. Your childhood. Your dreams. Why art history? I thought about deflecting, keeping my walls up. But something about the night, about him, made me want to be honest. My mother, I said. She used to take me to museums every Sunday. We couldn't afford much. My father was always between jobs, always chasing the next big thing, but the museums were free or cheap. We'd spend hours there, just the two of us, looking at paintings. She sounds wonderful. She was. She taught me to see the stories in art, to understand that every painting was someone's truth, frozen in time. I smiled at the memory. She died when I was 22. Cancer. We couldn't afford the best treatment, couldn't afford the experimental drugs that might have saved her. Dante's hand found mine, squeezing gently. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. After she died, I continued. I threw myself into school. Got my bachelor's, got into the master's program at NYU. I wanted to honor her memory by doing what she loved. And your father? Spiraled. The gambling got worse. The schemes got more desperate. I tried to help him, tried to get him to therapy, to Gamblers Anonymous, anything. But you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. We walked in silence for a moment, the city moving around us. I understand that, Dante said finally. About not being able to save people. Your sister. My whole family, really. My father built an empire on blood and violence. He wanted me to follow in his footsteps, run the organization the old way. But I wanted something different. Wanted to go legitimate, turn the family businesses into real corporations. Is that why you have the legitimate cover? The CEO persona? He nodded. I've spent the last 10 years cleaning up the family operations. Getting out of drugs, human trafficking, the worst of it. Building real businesses, real revenue streams. Not everyone in the family was happy about it. Let me guess, Vitelli? He was my father's enforcer. His executioner. When my father died and I took over, Vitelli expected to maintain his position. Instead, I cut him loose. He's been trying to destroy me ever since. I stopped walking, turning to face him. And my father gave him the perfect weapon. Yes. The weight of it settled between us. My father had betrayed Dante, yes. But he'd also put a weapon in the hands of Dante's worst enemy. The consequences could be catastrophic. What's Vitelli planning? I asked. I don't know yet. But when two rats meet in the dark, nothing good comes of it. We started walking again, but I couldn't shake the feeling of impending disaster. Like we were standing on the edge of a cliff, and the ground was starting to crumble. Dante, I said carefully. When this is over, when my father surfaces, what happens to us? He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, I don't know. That's not an answer. It's the only honest one I have. He stopped at the entrance to Salvatore Tower, turning to face me. You were supposed to be a means to an end, Elena. A tool to use against your father. But you're not. You're... What? I whispered. He cupped my face in his hands, his eyes searching mine. You're everything I didn't know I was looking for. Then he kissed me right there on the street, in front of security cameras and passing strangers and God and everyone. Kissed me like I was air and he'd been drowning. Like I was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. When we finally broke apart, I made a decision. Take me upstairs, I said. To your apartment. Not mine. Yours. Elena. I know what I'm doing. I know it's complicated and messy and probably a terrible idea. But I don't care. I met his eyes steadily. Unless you don't want. I want, he interrupted fiercely. God, I want. But I need you to be sure. Because once we cross this line, there's no going back. I'm sure. The elevator ride to the penthouse was the longest of my life. We stood on opposite sides of the car, both of us breathing hard, the tension so thick it was hard to breathe. The moment the doors opened, Dante was on me, backing me against the wall, his mouth on mine, his hands in my hair. We made it to his apartment somehow, kissing frantically, pulling at clothes. He kicked the door closed behind us and lifted me, my legs wrapping around his waist as he carried me toward the bedroom. Last chance, he murmured against my lips. Tell me to stop. Don't you dare, I breathed. He laid me on his bed's silk sheets, just like mine, but these smelled like him, dark and intoxicating. His hands found the zipper of my dress, sliding it down slowly, his eyes never leaving mine. You're so beautiful, he said, reverence in his voice. So damn beautiful. I sat up, working the buttons of his shirt, needing to feel his skin against mine. He was all lean muscle and bronze skin, with scars that told stories I wanted to learn. I traced one on his ribs and he shuddered. Elena, he groaned. Show me, I whispered. Show me who you really are. What happened next was fierce and tender, passionate and gentle, everything I'd never known I wanted. Dante made love to me like I was precious, like I mattered, like I was more than just a pawn in a game of revenge. And somewhere between the gasps and the whispers and the feeling of two bodies becoming one, I fell completely and irrevocably in love with him. Afterward, we lay tangled in his sheets, my head on his chest, his fingers drawing lazy patterns on my shoulder. I need to tell you something, Dante said quietly. Okay. There's more to the story. About your father. About what he did. I stiffened, but his arms tightened around me. Tell me, I said. The shipment your father stole, it wasn't random. He knew Gia was being treated at St. Vincent's. He knew those specific drugs were for the pediatric oncology ward. He targeted that shipment deliberately. Ice flooded my veins. Why would he? Because I'd refused to do business with him 6 months earlier. He'd approached me with a scheme, wanted my backing. I turned him down, told him I didn't work with gamblers and con men. He swore he'd make me regret it. Oh God. Oh God. He killed your sister on purpose, I whispered, horror washing over me. To hurt you. I think he underestimated how badly it would hurt. Thought I'd just be angry, not destroyed. Dante's voice was rough. I didn't tell you before because I didn't want you to carry that weight. But you deserve to know the truth. I sat up, pulling the sheet around myself, my mind reeling. My father hadn't just been reckless or greedy. He'd been cruel. Deliberately, viciously cruel. I'm going to be sick, I said, and barely made it to the bathroom before I was. Dante followed, holding my hair back, rubbing my back, murmuring soft words in Italian. When I finally stopped, he carried me back to bed, tucking me against him. I'm sorry, he said. I shouldn't have told you like that. I should have. No. My voice was fierce despite my tears. I needed to know. Needed to understand what he really is. He's still your father. He's a monster. I looked up at Dante, seeing my own pain reflected in his eyes. And I'm going to help you stop him. Whatever it takes. This is the moment everything changes. Because Elena isn't a victim anymore. She isn't caught in the middle. She's chosen a side. Chosen Dante. Chosen justice over blood. But here's the thing about choosing, sometimes you don't get to make the choice. Sometimes it's made for you. And in exactly 3 days, Elena's father is going to walk into a trap of her making. Dante's men are going to close in. And the confrontation that follows? It's going to reveal a secret that changes everything they thought they knew. About Vincent Romano. About Vitelli. About the real reason behind Gia's death. Are you ready for the truth? Because Elena wasn't. Over the next 3 days, I helped Dante and his team plan the trap. They'd tracked my father to a warehouse in Red Hook, Brooklyn, one of Vitelli's properties. He was meeting with Vitelli and several other players, planning something big. We go in Saturday night, Dante explained, his penthouse office converted into a war room with maps and surveillance photos spread across every surface. During the meeting, we'll have 20 men positioned around the building, cutting off all exits. And then, I asked, even though I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. Then I have a conversation with your father about consequences. Marco, who'd been standing guard by the door, cleared his throat. Boss, there's something you should see. He pulled up a video on one of the monitors, security footage from the warehouse, date stamped from the night before. It showed my father and Vitelli in what appeared to be a heated argument. Can you enhance the audio? Dante asked. Marco worked the controls, and suddenly we could hear them. I told you, the girl is the key, Vitelli was saying. She's staying with him, sleeping with him probably. She can get you access to his private files, his bank accounts, everything. My stomach dropped. I'm not using my daughter as a honeypot, my father snapped. There are lines even I won't cross. Lines? You killed his sister and you're talking about lines. That was an accident. I didn't know the drugs were for kids. I thought it was just another shipment, just another. Save it, Vitelli interrupted. The point is, Salvatore has something I want. Something worth more than your pathetic $3 million. And your daughter is going to help me get it. The video cut off. I stared at the blank screen, my mind racing. He said it was an accident, I whispered. He didn't know about Gia. Dante's expression was unreadable. Does it matter? Yes. No. I don't know. I pressed my hands to my temples, trying to process. He's still a thief. Still sold those drugs. Still let people suffer. But he didn't. He didn't deliberately murder a child. The outcome is the same, Elena. I know. But the intent matters. It has to matter. Dante was quiet for a long moment. Then, what does Vitelli want that's worth more than 3 million? Marco pulled up another file. We think he's after the Donati files. Impossible. Those are encrypted in a vault. That your assistant has access to, Marco finished. Sophia. We've been watching her. She's been meeting with someone who matches the description of one of Vitelli's lieutenants. Dante's face went white, then red with rage. Sophia? We don't have proof yet, but the circumstantial evidence is strong. If Vitelli turned her and if she's been copying files, then he has access to every criminal transaction, every dirty deal, every piece of leverage the Salvatore family has accumulated for 3 generations. Dante's fist slammed down on the desk. He could destroy us. Expose us. We'd all go to prison or worse. Or, I said slowly, an idea forming, we could use it. They both turned to look at me. If Sophia is the leak, and if Vitelli thinks he's going to get the files at this meeting, we can feed him false information. Make him think he's won. Then, when he tries to use it, we expose him instead, Dante finished, a predatory smile crossing his face. Marco, can we create convincing fakes? Give me 24 hours. You have 12. The next day and a half were a blur of preparation. I barely slept, running on coffee and adrenaline. Dante worked around the clock with his team, creating elaborate fake files that would lead Vitelli into a trap of his own making. Meanwhile, Sophia continued her normal routine, apparently unaware that we knew about her betrayal. It turned my stomach to smile at her, to accept her coffee and her cheerful greetings, knowing she was planning to destroy everything. But I was learning. In Dante's world, everyone wore masks. Trust was a luxury. Survival was an art. Friday night, Dante came to my apartment. He looked exhausted, wearing the same clothes from the morning, his hair disheveled from running his hands through it. It's done, he said. The fake files are ready. Sophia will accidentally leave them accessible tomorrow afternoon. By the time they meet tomorrow night, Vitelli will think he has everything he needs to bury me. And my father? Will be there. We'll take him into custody, let him make his choice, cooperate or face consequences. I nodded, my throat tight. Tomorrow, it would all end. One way or another. Stay with me tonight, Dante said suddenly. I don't want to be alone. I thought you didn't do. I don't do a lot of things. Until you. He pulled me close, resting his forehead against mine. Elena, when this is over, when your father is dealt with and Vitelli is neutralized, I want you to stay. Not as part of a deal. Not as a means to an end. But because you want to. Dante, you don't have to answer now. Just think about it. I didn't need to think about it. I'd made my choice the moment I'd fallen in love with him. But there was something I needed to know first. If my father cooperates, if he testifies against Vitelli, will you let him go? Dante's jaw clenched. He still owes me $3 million. He still caused Gia's death, accidental or not. I know. But prison instead of death. A chance at redemption instead of execution. You're asking me to show mercy to the man who destroyed my family. I'm asking you to be the man I know you are. Not your father's son. Not a mob boss. Just Dante. The man who loves his sister enough to build her a gallery. The man who's trying to go legitimate. The man I stopped, the words catching in my throat. The man you what? Dante asked softly. The man I love, I whispered. The words hung between us, fragile and powerful. Dante's eyes widened, something raw and vulnerable crossing his face. Say it again. I love you, I said, stronger this time. I know it's insane. I know it's too fast and too complicated and probably the worst idea I've ever had. But I love you, Dante Salvatore. And I need to know, can you show mercy? He kissed me then, deep and desperate, like he was trying to memorize the taste of me. When he finally pulled back, his eyes were bright with unshed tears. For you, he said. I'll try. We made love that night like it might be our last chance. Slow and sweet and tinged with the desperation of people who knew that tomorrow, everything could fall apart. Afterward, wrapped in his arms, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, we'd survive this. That love could conquer vengeance. That redemption was possible. I should have known better. Because the next night, when we walked into that warehouse in Red Hook, we weren't just walking into a trap for Vitelli and my father. We were walking into a trap that had been set for us. Saturday evening came too fast. I dressed in dark jeans and a black sweater, pulling my hair back in a ponytail. Dante had wanted me to stay at the tower, somewhere safe, but I'd refused. My father was my responsibility. I needed to face him. "You stay behind me," Dante instructed as we approached the warehouse in a convoy of black SUVs. "If shooting starts, you hit the ground." "Understood." "Understood." Marco and his team moved out first, taking positions around the building. Through the surveillance feeds on the tablet Dante carried, I could see my father inside, pacing nervously. Vitelli sat calmly at a table, two of his men flanking him. Sophia, traitor Sophia, stood near the door, presumably ready to run if things went south. "On my signal," Dante said into his radio. Then we moved. The warehouse doors burst open with coordinated precision. Dante's men poured in from 3 directions, weapons drawn, cutting off all escape routes. I stayed close to Dante, my heart hammering so hard I could barely hear. "Nobody move," Marco shouted. Vitelli didn't even flinch. He just smiled that reptilian smile. "Ah, Salvatore. Right on time." My father, on the other hand, looked terrified. His eyes found mine and widened. "Elena? What are you?" "Quiet," Dante commanded. He moved into the warehouse like a king entering his throne room, radiating authority and danger. "Alessandro, I believe you have something that belongs to me." "You mean these?" Vitelli gestured to a laptop on the table. "Your precious files? Your family's dirty little secrets. Those would be the fake files my team created specifically for you. But you already know that, don't you?" Vitelli's smile didn't waver. "Actually, I don't. Because you see, Dante, I had insurance. Sophia wasn't my only source." My blood ran cold. "What are you talking about?" Dante demanded. "Why don't you ask your lovely Elena?" All eyes turned to me. I felt Dante's gaze like a physical weight. "I don't know what he's talking about," I said frantically. "Dante, I swear I don't." "Show him," Vitelli said, nodding to one of his men. A laptop screen flickered to life, showing security footage. But not from the warehouse. From Salvatore Tower. From Dante's private office. The footage showed me, or someone who looked exactly like me, entering Dante's office late at night. Sitting at his computer. Downloading files onto a flash drive. "That's not me," I said desperately. "I've never been in your office alone, I would never." "Deepfake," Marco said suddenly, studying the footage. "Look at the timestamp. That was Tuesday night. Elena was with me and 3 other guards at a museum event until past midnight." Relief flooded through me, but Dante's expression remained hard. "Nice try, Alessandro," Dante said. "But your fake video isn't going to." "Oh, that was just for show," Vitelli interrupted. "The real insurance is much better. Tell him, Vincent." My father, who'd been silent this whole time, looked sick. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry, Elena." "Dad? What did you do?" "He made me a deal," my father said, his voice breaking. 6 months ago. Before I stole the shipment. He said if I helped him get information on Salvatore, he'd clear my gambling debts. $5 million worth. The room spun. "You've been working with Vitelli for 6 months?" "I didn't know about the girl," my father said desperately. "I swear I didn't know the drugs were for sick kids. Vitelli just told me to steal whatever shipment was coming in that week. Said it would hurt Salvatore, make him vulnerable. I didn't ask questions. I needed the money, Elena. I needed." "You sacrificed a child for gambling debts." Dante's voice was ice. Pure, deadly ice. "It was an accident. I never meant." "Enough." Vitelli stood, brushing off his suit. "Here's how this is going to work, Salvatore. Vincent has been recording every conversation he's had with Elena over the past few weeks, including the ones where she admitted to helping you plan this little ambush, where she gave you information about my operations, where she essentially became an accessory to whatever charges you're planning to bring against me." "That's a lie," I said, but my voice sounded weak even to my own ears. "I never." "You called me 3 times this week," my father said miserably. Each time, Vitelli had me on another line, recording everything. I had to ask you questions, get you to talk about Dante, about his plans. I tried to remember the calls. Brief conversations, me telling my father to stay hidden, to be safe. Had I mentioned anything about Dante's operations? About the trap we were planning? Oh God. Wednesday night. I'd been half asleep, and my father had called asking if I was okay. I'd told him I was helping Dante with some business thing on Saturday. I'd mentioned Red Hook. No, I whispered. Yes, Vitelli confirmed. So here's the deal, Salvatore. You let me walk out of here with Vincent and Sophia, along with the actual files I need, not your fake garbage, or those recordings go to the FBI. Your little girlfriend will be charged as an accessory to organized crime. She'll be lucky to get 10 years. Dante looked at me, and I saw it in his eyes, doubt. Just a flicker, but enough to break my heart. I didn't know, I said desperately. Dante, please, you have to believe me. I would never. She's playing you, Vitelli said smoothly. Just like her father played you. The whole family is poison, Salvatore. When are you going to learn? Here's the moment where everything hangs in the balance. Because Dante has to choose, does he believe Elena, the woman he loves, or does he believe the evidence in front of him? Does he choose love, or does he choose vengeance? And Elena? She's about to do something that will either save them all or destroy them forever. But before she does, you need to hear what her father says next. Because the truth about Gia's death? It's even worse than any of them imagined. Wait, my father said suddenly. There's something else. Something Vitelli doesn't want you to know. Vincent, shut up, Vitelli snapped, but my father ignored him. The drugs, my father continued, speaking directly to Dante. The ones I stole. They weren't supposed to go to St. Vincent's Hospital at all. Dante went very still. What? Vitelli changed the delivery route. Originally, that shipment was headed to a different facility. Vitelli intercepted it, redirected it, made sure it was going to the children's hospital specifically because your sister was there. The warehouse went silent. Even Vitelli's men looked shocked. You're lying, Dante said, but there was uncertainty in his voice. I have proof. My father pulled out his phone with shaking hands. Emails from Vitelli's account. Shipping manifests showing the route change. He wanted you to think I targeted your sister deliberately. Wanted you focused on revenge against me instead of looking too closely at him. Why? I asked. Why would he do that? My father looked at Vitelli. Because he was embezzling from the Salvatore family. Skimming off the top of every shipment, every deal. He needed Dante distracted, emotional, not thinking clearly. What better distraction than the death of his baby sister? Vitelli moved fast, pulling a gun, but Dante was faster. His own weapon was out and aimed before Vitelli could fire. Marco, Dante said calmly. Take the laptop from Mr. Romano. Verify his claims. The next few minutes were tense. Marco worked the laptop while everyone stood frozen, weapons drawn, waiting. Finally, Marco looked up. He's telling the truth, boss. The emails are here. Vitelli redirected the shipment. He wanted Gia's hospital to be the one affected. And there's more financial records showing he's been stealing from us for 3 years. At least 20 million. The gun in Dante's hand didn't waver. But something in his face cracked, just for a moment. The grief, the rage he'd been directing at my father, it all shifted, refocused on the real villain. You killed her, Dante said, his voice barely above a whisper. You killed Gia to cover your tracks. I did what was necessary, Vitelli said coldly. Your family was going soft. You were going legitimate, cutting into my profits. I needed leverage. So you murdered a child. I made a strategic decision. The shot rang out before anyone could move. But it wasn't Dante who fired. It was my father. The gun he'd hidden in his jacket, old, probably illegal, definitely not the weapon of someone who knew what they were doing, barked once. The bullet caught Vitelli in the shoulder, spinning him around. Chaos erupted. Vitelli's men opened fire. Marco's team returned it. I hit the ground as Dante dragged me behind a concrete pillar, his body covering mine. Stay down, he shouted. The firefight lasted less than 30 seconds, but felt like hours. When the smoke cleared, Vitelli's men were on the ground, disarmed or injured. Sophia had fled out a side door. And Vitelli himself was on his knees, clutching his shoulder, blood seeping through his fingers. My father stood over him, the gun still in his trembling hand. That's for Gia, my father said. And for my daughter, who you tried to use as a pawn. And for every other person you've hurt with your poison. Dante rose slowly, helping me to my feet. He walked toward my father, and I held my breath, terrified of what would happen next. Then Dante extended his hand. Thank you, he said simply. My father stared at the hand like it was a miracle. Then he took it, and the two men who should have been enemies stood there, united by their shared hatred of the man bleeding on the concrete floor. Marco, Dante said, not taking his eyes off Vitelli. Call the FBI. Tell them we have Alessandro Vitelli gift-wrapped and ready for collection. Make sure they know about the embezzlement, the murder conspiracy, everything. Boss, if we call the FBI. I know. We'll have to answer questions. Might expose some of our operations. But it's worth it to see this bastard rot in prison for the rest of his life. Dante's smile was sharp as a knife. Sometimes, the system actually works. Let's see if it does this time. As Marco made the call, Dante turned to me. His eyes searched my face, looking for something. I'm sorry, he said. For doubting you. Even for a second. You had reason to doubt. No. I know you, Elena. Know your heart. I should have trusted that. He pulled me close, pressing his forehead to mine. Forgive me? Always. We stood like that until the sirens started wailing in the distance. Red and blue lights flickered through the warehouse windows. The FBI was coming. Reality was catching up. Dante, my father said quietly. I know saying sorry isn't enough. I know what I did, even accidentally, caused you unbearable pain. But if there's any way I can make this right. Dante looked at him for a long moment. Then, the 3 million you owe me. We'll consider it paid in blood, Vitelli's, not yours. But you're going to do something for me. Anything. You're going to get help. Real help. Therapy for the gambling addiction. Maybe even rehab if you need it. And you're going to stay clean. Because if you ever, and I mean ever, put Elena in danger again, there won't be enough FBI agents in the world to save you from me. Understand? My father nodded, tears streaming down his face. I understand. And thank you. Thank you for giving me a chance. The FBI swarmed in minutes later, along with NYPD and what looked like half the federal prosecutors in New York. True to his word, Dante cooperated fully, handing over the evidence of Vitelli's crimes, along with his own documentation of the embezzlement. It took hours of questioning. They separated us, me in one room, Dante in another, my father in a third. I told them everything I knew, leaving out only the most incriminating details of Dante's organization. They seemed more interested in Vitelli anyway, the bigger fish. Dawn was breaking over Manhattan by the time they finally let us go. Dante, my father, and I stood outside the FBI building in Lower Manhattan, exhausted and wrung out. What now? My father asked. Now you go to the address Marco will send you, Dante said. It's a treatment facility in Connecticut. Best in the country for addiction recovery. You'll stay there for 90 days minimum. After that, we'll see. My father looked at me. Elena, I hugged him, cutting off his words. Get better, Dad. That's all I want. Just get better. He held me tight, and for a moment, he was the father I remembered from childhood, before the gambling, before the schemes, before everything went wrong. Then he let go, climbing into the car Marco had pulled up. As the car drove away, I sagged against Dante, letting him support my weight. Take me home, I whispered. Your apartment or mine? Yours. Always yours. 3 months later, I stood in Gia's gallery, putting the finishing touches on the exhibition I'd been curating. Not just Gia's paintings anymore, though those were still the centerpiece. I'd added works from other young artists, kids from underprivileged neighborhoods, students who couldn't afford formal training but had raw talent bursting to get out. The Elena Salvatore Memorial Gallery would open to the public next week, free admission, with all proceeds from any art sales going to fund pediatric cancer research and art programs for at-risk youth. It was Dante's idea. His way of turning his grief into something meaningful. His way of honoring his sister's memory while helping other children achieve their dreams. It looks perfect, Dante's voice came from behind me. I turned to find him leaning in the doorway, still in his suit from whatever meeting he'd come from. CEO of Salvatore Industries by day, reformed crime boss by night, though that second part was fading. He'd made good on his promise to go legitimate, closing down the last of the family's illegal operations, cutting ties with anyone who wouldn't go clean. It had cost him allies, cost him money, cost him respect in certain circles. But he'd gained something more valuable, a clear conscience. And me. She would have loved this, I said, gesturing to the gallery. All these young artists getting a chance. She would have loved you, Dante corrected, pulling me into his arms. You've transformed this space from a mausoleum into a living tribute. That's a gift. I leaned into him, breathing in his familiar scent. These past 3 months had been the hardest and best of my life. Hard because we were both dealing with trauma, with change, with the fallout of everything that had happened. Best because we were doing it together. Vitelli was in federal prison, facing charges that would keep him there for life. Sophia had been arrested for corporate espionage and was cooperating with authorities in exchange for a reduced sentence. My father was 2 months into his treatment program and, according to his counselors, actually making progress. And Dante and I? We were building something real. Something that wasn't based on revenge or necessity, but on choice. On love. I have something for you, Dante said, pulling back slightly. Close your eyes. Is this another ridiculous gift? Because I told you, you don't need to buy me things. This one's different. Trust me. I closed my eyes. I heard him moving, then felt something being placed around my neck. Something light and delicate. Okay, open. I opened my eyes and looked down. A pendant hung from a thin gold chain, a miniature painting no bigger than a quarter, beautifully detailed. I recognized the style immediately. Is this Gia's? She painted it the month before she died. She told me she was making it for her future sister-in-law. His voice was thick with emotion. I think she would have liked you to have it. Tears blurred my vision. The tiny painting showed 2 birds in flight, their wings intertwined. Together, but still free. Dante, I can't. You can. You have to. Because there's something else. He took my hand, and I felt him trembling. Elena Romano, these past 3 months with you have been the best of my life. You've made me believe in redemption, in second chances, in the possibility that someone as broken as me could be worthy of someone as incredible as you. Oh my God. Was he? He dropped to one knee. I know it's fast. I know we've been through hell and maybe we should wait, take our time, be sensible. His smile was shaky. But I've spent my whole life being sensible, being strategic, playing it safe. And then you walked into my office, well, you were dragged into my office, and you changed everything. Dante, let me finish. He pulled out a small velvet box. I'm not my father. I'm not defined by my past or the organization I inherited. I'm just a man who loves you more than life itself and wants to spend every day proving I'm worthy of your love in return. He opened the box. The ring inside was stunning, a deep green emerald surrounded by diamonds, set in platinum. The exact color of the dress I'd worn to our first public appearance. Marry me, Elena. Be my wife, my partner, my everything. Help me build a life that would make Gia proud. A life that honors your mother's memory. A life that's ours. I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. Could only stare at this beautiful, complicated, perfect man kneeling before me in a gallery dedicated to his sister's memory, offering me forever. Yes, I finally whispered. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. He slid the ring onto my finger, and it fit perfectly. Of course it did. Dante never did anything halfway. Then he stood and kissed me, and the world fell away. There was only us, only this moment, only the promise of a future we'd fought so hard to claim. When we finally broke apart, both of us laughing and crying, I had one question. How did you know my ring size? I had Gabriella measure your finger while you were asleep. That night after the warehouse, when you were so exhausted you could barely move. You planned this that long ago? I knew I wanted to marry you the moment you cried over Gia's paintings. The moment you saw my sister as a person, not just a tragedy. The moment you chose compassion over judgment. He cupped my face in his hands. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me, Elena. And I promise to spend every day of the rest of my life making sure you never regret saying yes. I could never regret this. Never regret you. We kissed again, sealing our promise. Around us, Gia's paintings seemed to glow in the gallery lights, a blessing from beyond. Later, after we'd celebrated properly and called everyone we knew to share the news, after my father cried tears of joy over the phone and Marco actually cracked a smile, I stood with Dante on the balcony of his penthouse, looking out over Manhattan. The city sparkled below us, full of possibilities and second chances. Full of people trying to find their way, just like we were. What are you thinking? Dante asked, his arm around my waist. That's 6 months ago. If someone had told me I'd be engaged to a former mafia don, I would have thought they were insane. And now? Now I think they would have been right. We are insane. I turned in his arms, grinning up at him. But maybe insane is exactly what we need to be. He laughed, the sound rich and free, no longer weighed down by grief and rage. To insanity, then. And love. And second chances. To us, I corrected. And all the beautiful chaos we're going to create. Happy chaos? I thought of Gia's painting, the one she called Happy Chaos. The one that saw beauty in disorder and meaning in madness. The happiest, I confirmed. And as Dante kissed me under the stars, with Manhattan spread out before us like a promise, I knew that our story was just beginning. It wouldn't be perfect. It wouldn't be easy. But it would be ours. And that was everything. The Elena Salvatore Memorial Gallery's first anniversary celebration was in full swing. The space was packed with people, art lovers, donors, young artists showing their work, and families who'd benefited from the foundation Dante and I had established in Gia's name. My father was there too, 1 year sober, working as a counselor at the treatment facility that had saved his life. He was helping others fight their demons, turning his own mistakes into lessons that could save people. Redemption, I'd learned, wasn't a destination. It was a journey. And my father was finally on the right path. Speech time, Dante murmured in my ear, guiding me to the small stage we'd set up. I took the microphone, looking out at all the faces. Thank you all for being here tonight. A year ago, this gallery was a private shrine to a little girl who loved art and died too soon. Tonight, it's a living tribute to her memory and to the power of second chances. I found Dante in the crowd, his eyes locked on mine. Gia believed the world was happy chaos, beautiful disorder that made sense if you looked at it the right way. That's what this gallery represents. That's what the foundation represents. The idea that from tragedy can come hope. From loss can come purpose. From endings can come new beginnings. The crowd applauded, but I wasn't finished. And I have one more announcement to make. I gestured for Dante to join me on stage. He moved through the crowd with that same predatory grace, but his eyes were soft when they met mine. I took his hand, placed it on my stomach. Gia's going to have a namesake, I said, my voice breaking with happy tears. We're having a girl. And we're naming her Juliana. The applause was deafening. Dante pulled me close, burying his face in my hair, his shoulders shaking with emotion. When he finally pulled back, his eyes were wet. She would have been the best aunt, he whispered. She will be. Every time we tell our daughter stories about her. Every time we show her these paintings. Every time we teach her to see beauty in chaos. I kissed him softly. Gia will live on. In our daughter. In this gallery. In every child we help. She'll never be forgotten. That night, after the guests had left and the gallery was quiet, Dante and I stood in front of Gia's Happy Chaos painting. His hand rested on my barely there baby bump, our future growing inside me. Thank you, he said suddenly. For what? For seeing past the monster to the man. For giving me a reason to be better. For loving me despite everything. You were never a monster, Dante. You were just a man who'd forgotten how to hope. And I didn't give you a reason to be better. You chose to be better. That's all you. We chose it together, he corrected. Everything good in my life now, I built with you. I leaned into him, feeling complete in a way I never had before. Do you think she knows? Gia? That she changed everything, even in dying. I think she always knew she'd change the world. She just had to do it in a different way than we expected. He kissed the top of my head. And I think she's happy we found each other. That something good came from something so terrible. We stood there for a long time, the three of us, Dante, me, and our unborn daughter, in a gallery dedicated to a little girl who'd taught us all how to find light in the darkness. Love, I'd learned, wasn't simple. It wasn't easy. It didn't conquer all. But it was enough. When you found the right person, when you both chose each other every single day, it was enough. And in the end, that was the greatest revenge of all. Not destroying your enemies, but building something so beautiful they could never touch it. A life filled with love and purpose and hope. Happy chaos indeed. If you loved Dante and Elena's journey from vengeance to redemption, please like this video and subscribe to this channel for more passionate romance stories. Drop a comment telling me your favorite moment. I read every single one. New stories every week. Thank you for listening.